Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and review the matches. I'm gonna go ahead and review the SPTQ. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and based on how long this took. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and based on how long this took. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and based on how long this took. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and based on how long this took. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and based on how long this took. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and based on how long this took. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and based on how long this takes based on how long this takes without further 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 base guess 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 how long this takes. I just turned off the echo, so I apologize about that. Here, I think this is a generic hand you can just keep. We're gonna fetch first before thinning. I mean, we're gonna thin first before Once Upon a Time. Based on this hand, I take that back. I think I took the Collector Oof here because I thought they could be on combo because of Underground Sea. So that might have been a mistake because they ended up being on a 4C control deck. Here they aggressively force. I'm pretty happy about this, to be honest, especially given that we can just play the Arbor. So they revealed a Tundra off the Iteration, but Iteration itself already tells me they're not a fair deck, which is why the regret on the. So pretty straightforward stuff. I just I just wanted a glimpse of value, then they took the bait, so to speak, and forced it. If it resolved, I would have been okay as well. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, so we won game one pretty easily. Like, I don't think there was anything that interesting about that game one. We kept a decent hand here, I think. Here, I know that their list has Wasteland, so it's like the 4C him greed pile. So I fetched the basic to play around the Wasteland. They waste me there, which makes me happy. A little bit of an awkward draw, and they like aggressively force. So I'm like it's kind of annoying, right? Like typically, I don't think that's the correct move, especially from a control player. Here we just kind of have to churn through our deck, right? We're gonna fetch an Arbor. Well, actually, the Bayou because we have the Gris. Here I'm getting the Gris on the board. Argument to be made that I should probably symbiote there. The reason why I didn't was because I already fetched the Bayou, so if they waste me, I can't cast the Gris anymore. This is a slight misplay by me. If they had blocked the Visionary, I would have been punished. I should have actually tapped the Arbor. So that was a small misplay that did not get punished. Because, like I said, I would lose a mana there. Hopefully that was apparent. Here again, I'm, just grinding them out. I actually feel very good about the board situation here. Unfortunately, based on the what we saw earlier, this went to 3 games, so I lost this game. And we got engineered here, I believe. No, never mind. So we took the hymn, and that's why they have 1 card left. I think we're about to, and we're starting to flood out a little bit here, unfortunately. Here we're okay with them using Snapcaster as ambush viper to take down the Teferi. I don't. We're already kind of flooding out, and then we unfortunately drew another land. It's times like this where I kind of wish I had access to the Horizon canopy, and then it's like really awkward because if we draw anything, so that was a mistake by me as well. Well, actually, sort of, because 2 things happened here. I like forgot that the bog was already in the yard, and if I had remembered, and they have Snapcaster, if I leave Reclaimer up from their perspective, they think we have Sajiri Steep in the deck. The problem is because we don't, and I kind of want to deck it. And here, what happens is we seize, and then they draw the Snapcaster, and it's like really awkward because I forgot the bog, and then we couldn't actually bog. Right? So I go for it, and then I realize what had happened. Um, One thing that I want to point out too, it's not an excuse, it's an explanation. As a general rule of thumb, I'm not a morning person, and if I've said this on other streams too, if there is a time to catch me, it is early on because I don't play. I'm not as sharp, and missing the bog here was pretty big. Like I'm supposed to deck thin, and we drew a useless discard spell as a result, right? Like it, or it could have been a land or fetch land, right? So yeah, unfortunately, also here, natural order doesn't even do the job anymore. We actually awkwardly draw it off the top here because if I remember correct, yeah, and because it's not lethal. Um, I don't actually go for it, right? I'm waiting for another 1 drop, and then that's the game ender there, right? We were just a little bit short, and if we potentially have the canopy and land in our deck, maybe this game looks a little bit different, and we squeeze it out despite our flood situation. All right, so that does that. For those of you who are curious about the results, I did go 6-2. And this, I mean, I already posted on Twitter, so I guess I'll just reveal what happened. But I ended up losing round 1. And like I said, the first match of the day, usually where I'm most vulnerable because I am not as sharp, especially in the morning when I'm, a little groggy. It was at 5 a.m. in the Pacific time. So, things like that do happen. I'm not making excuses. I'm just explaining why. And unfortunately, it's something I need to work on. All right, so this is like a pretty solid hand, I think. It has turn 1 Thoughtseize. I can take their Plague Engineer that is, for sure coming in. I take the land thin, and then I Thoughtseize, taking the hymn. The other options here were a permission spell, 2 ponders, a snapcaster. I thought about taking the snapcaster as well, but it's a little bit slow. I think I'm just trying to go fast. Here, I'm like weighing my options. It's part of me wants to get the Reclaimer going and then to ramp because I have two, especially the Once Upon a Time, that's probably pretty good. And I have the Visionary as a payoff, so I opted to ramp. The alternative line here would be to Visionary and see what we draw. The problem, the reason what I did was I ramped because I wanted my good top decks to be paid off, and I was expecting a removal spell, which they did have. So I'm like actually okay. A whole different skin. What do you mean, Mr. I guess LYHH? The board just looks different. I mean, this is the replay, right? So maybe that's why. I'm not sure. It looks pretty normal to me, but maybe I'm missing something. All right, so kind of a not so great top deck because okay, so they forced the Visionary, which is like really strange, right? Like some of their plays kind of threw me off too, but c'est la vie, right? And then I proactively bogged there because I'm thinking about their deck, and they have Snapcaster, and unfortunately I can't Reclaimer at instant speed anymore, so that option is down the drain. There is an argument to be made that I can bluff Reclaimer Bog activation down the road, but given that this is our hand, they can just preemptively turn 3 Snapcaster anyways, so that was an attractive option. That was kind of brutal, right? Like I didn't expect the force into Inquisition my Once Upon a Time, so suddenly we're flooding out. I don't stream these for a few reasons, Sadra. Number one, I'm a little bit, cause this is like actually. So number one, I do poorly or do worse when I stream because I am not good at multitasking. And for something I would care about, I don't care about leagues, and I even prelims to an extent I don't really care. So I potentially stream that too, but the problem is there's no incentive for me to play prelims at the moment because I don't need QPs, qualifier points. One thing I will say though is, in addition to playing worse, the second thing is I'm a little bit afraid of sniping because I think the times I've streamed, fortunately because it's been leagues, I think it's happened in my opinion for sure one time already, and then the second time I'm not 100% sure, but their plays just seemed very awkward to me, and it was just actually earlier this week. So there's the 2 times, right? Like, but more so the first reason because I'm afraid of playing worse. And here it's just a little bit awkward for us. Like we keep drawing lands. Possible I don't attack there, but I think given the board state, I kind of have to at least put some pressure. I mean, Sadra, you were in the stream at the time. You can be the judge, or like it just seemed their plays was very, very suspect to me that day. And the other time, it's almost for sure like somebody I respect said Reese. A mental misstep on Moto was in the stream the other time I got sniped, and he even thought it was obvious the person was sniping because of the way that they played. Like the one time, and this was like months ago, the one time I passed priority, they decided to wasteland me when I reclaim her up. Exactly. So the stream would be more for, viewer engagement, right? Like I can answer in real time. Here I know the odds are stacked against me. Like I'm down to really 1 card, and they already like saw my hand, right? And I just try to apply some to the board in case I draw a glimpse. But then the issue with this game was they're gonna chain multiple iterations, and I'm not going to like see my visionaries. Yeah. So eventually, I just get bled out, so to speak. I make a valiant effort later on, and my opponent actually screwed up. I'll show how. So I didn't want to expose the shepherd because I know in a handful of 6 they got permission, and we saw the force of negation earlier. Yeah, so we're just getting drowned in card advantage here. So here, I know, so they made a huge mistake. They tapped out thinking, oh, I have force permission, right? And I led with Shepard to protect the glimpse. Normally, I would lead with glimpse, but here we absolutely need the glimpse to resolve. So as a general rule of thumb, I will lead with glimpse still, unless I absolutely need the payoff to resolve, which is here glimpse of nature, right? Sometimes it's a visionary, sometimes a war, whatever it may be. And we actually put somewhat get back into the game here. No worries, Mr. LYHH. So I'm actually feeling better about my situation given that they kind of screwed up. Unfortunately, they have quite the turn here. Alright, so they're down to 4 cards. And I'm thinking, okay, this might be okay because Progenitor is still in my deck. I still have Glimpse, I have Natural Order. Unfortunately, we know that there's at least one permission spell, so I'm going to bait with the Glimpse here. So they have the Force of Negation. I could lead with the Visionary. The problem is it doesn't really do me any good unless the top deck is Thoughtseize. Actually, hold on. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. So we can't even do it, right? It's either Natural Order or bust here. So we can't do everything in one turn, and I think if we pass the turn, it's just gonna get worse again. So what I hear is we already baited out the one Force of Negation. I'm just hoping they don't have another, and they end up do. Yeah, so unfortunately it didn't work out. Yeah, it was definitely very sad here. I think this matchup is actually very good. Or I don't know about very good, but good, favorable, right? Like, they didn't see the engineers to somewhat late, or that they were sandbagging it. It seemed like potentially they were sandbagging. I don't know why they would, in case I guess they're playing around removal, but especially since we were holding 4 cards in hand. But pretty sad to start off the day with a loss. So I'm 0-1 here. I'm like contemplating, oh, do I even want to consider? I said, well, the last time I played a big event, it was Eternal Weekend, and what's it called? We started 0-1 Eternal Weekend as well. So I thought, okay, we'll play it out. Like, given the history, right? Um, I think yes and no. It depends what you define as a big event, right? Like I'll play. I played Eternal Weekend, and that was my first Eternal Weekend that I played. This was not Anu Pile. So Honor Rock runs green, omitting black. So okay, so I do not play challenges, for instance, and depending who you ask, I don't even consider them really big. This was a PTQ, so I decided I wanted to play that. And historically, I have not played Eternal Weekend just because of travel. And in 2020, I had other things to take care of. Like for instance, that year I qualified for the mocks, so I was working on playing Modern. This year in 2020, or this past year in 2021 in November, I played Eternal Weekend because I did not qualify for the mocks this year, so that was sad. But I did have the time, and I figured I wanted to play for the first time, right? So I have 100% conversion rate now in for Eternal Weekend, so that's kind of nice. Maybe I'm thinking about retiring to keep those numbers high, right? But anyways, so we start 0-1. I won't play the regular challenges. I will play the showcase challenges if I am free. I don't play all of them. Like if I have a big thing, I will just skip it. But for the most part, I'll try to play the showcase challenges. All right, on to round 2. So we're 0-1 here. I'm like thinking, all right, maybe we can, make a comeback, right? All right, so Medvedev. Usually this opponent is on like Moon Stompy, and I'm just thinking, well, it could be a quick 0-2, right? Because I absolutely hate playing against Moon Stompy. But it is what it is, right? I see this hand, it's not great. But I decide, well, maybe they're on another deck, and this hand will be okay. So I keep. So there's a running joke the shuffler's not cooperating, right? I see this, they're targeting themselves. Obviously, this is Reanimator, and I'm thinking, oh, so I have a chat for my elf people I consult, my elf cabal, so to speak, right? And we jokingly said, oh, the shuffler is telling one of my other friends to, just drop from the tournament for the day. And I jokingly responded, I think shuffler is telling me to continue on because I paired into Reanimator and I have the 1 of endurance in my hand. Turn 0 endurance. And I like to say it's better lucky than good, right? They go for it turn 0 or turn 1, and we happen to have the 1 out in our deck, which is kind of unbelievable, really, like if you think about it. So one of the rare times I'll get a chance to tap Cradle for mana on turn 1 here. The other exception is obviously if my opponent has show and tell, but you're probably losing in that case. Yeah, it does help you to be good both, right? Lucky and good. Here it's just sheer luck, to be honest. Like, obviously, I'm like way ahead already. I'm just keeping Reclaimer up. Our opponent's not winning this game. And anybody who's in my Discord, that reminds me, here's my Discord channel, here's my Patreon channel, here is my YouTube channel. YouTube probably being maybe the most useful, I think, because of the replays. What am I forgetting? Oh, here's my Twitter for anybody who wants to follow me. But anybody who's in my Discord channel, especially who subscribe to my Patreon as well, I actually mentioned the night before I posted my list, and I said I suspect there's going to be a high amount of Reanimator because of Canister's recent win and success. Where's your WhatsApp channel? I don't have that, but I did mention to my patron subscribers that I suspect Reanimator is going to be good, and here is my sideboard. I am boarding in 14 cards. So if you're on Reanimator, you're probably not going to beat me. And I don't want, well, I guess people already know. I won this matchup pretty easily. Because I'll lose game 1 typically, and we even got gifted a game 1 here. And my board essentially into this event was saying, I'm not going to lose Reanimator. And we have the 4 copies of Endurance, including the 1 main, right? And 3 Leyline of the Void. Yeah, we want Reanimator to be good personally because it's easier for us to hate out Reanimator. Not to mention, we want 1 combo deck to be good because we don't want lands to be lurking in the later rounds. So we have the 4 Cs, and the Caracas is not really for Reanimator because I think it's kind of iffy actually against Reanimator. It's more so a hedge towards the Merit Lage decks. But yeah, anybody who if you want this kind of analysis, I guess, or like this kind of thinking process, feel free to subscribe to my Patreon. It's only $5. $10 will give you access to potential league review once a month. So I recently opened this offer up for anybody who is a patron of mine. Anybody in the Bayou or the Cradle tier, I will select one, and if it's popular, maybe twice a month to review their replay. And then first come first serve basis too. So and I will also pass down this offer to Basic Forest tier for anybody interested, in case nobody from the Bayou or Cradle tier submits. How to degrade in bronze? Okay, so I don't know what you're referring to on that, Mr. Demoted to bronze. Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about arena. All right, so game 2 here. We open with kind of the nuts. Yeah, I understand that, Mr. Lee. Here, or LYHH, I open with Leyline and 2 endurances. I don't think I'm losing in most cases in this scenario. The only thing that makes this better is probably a reclaimer over the second endurance, because you want a threat down, right? I feel like a deck doesn't have 4th, we can get through most boards. Yeah, I would agree with that, Sadra. Like, I know we lost round 1. I do think that was more of an anomaly than anything else. But if we need to address the control matchups, for instance, maybe we play one Nurturing Peatland, right? Thanks, Dustin. I appreciate that. Yeah, we went 6-2, top 32 instead of top 16 because we had horrible breakers. I'm going through the review right now. We're on round 2. We stole game 1 from Reanimator with a natural endurance, and better lucky than good, right? So I think majority of the X2s, actually the 6-2s, were top 32 because it trickled all the way down to 28. I think my rank was 27, so I had the second lowest tiebreaker. Part of it is because I lost round 1, right? But here we just open up with the nuts, and I slow roll it, of course. I count a few seconds before I click I guess keep, because I don't. Sometimes that will cause Reanimator players to keep shaking your hands, and lo and behold, they did. The fact that they took the oh, okay. I hopefully did. So my guess on that build, Dustin, is and Dustin talking about like splashing white for Esper Sentinel. My gut feeling is, while it's better than the red splash for Ragavan, I still think it has some of these same issues, which is notably your non-blue matchup get a lot worse, and your mana gets worse. Here, like a pro, we top deck a Thoughtseize, and then I lead with Thoughtseize and see what's up. The fact that they took the Shepherd makes me think maybe they're on the show and tell backup plan. Instead, it confirmed what we played into, right? Like, they kept a shaky hand because they had like the turn 2, and they thought, oh, our opponent is in the tank, so maybe their hand is not as good. We take the, I think I took the Exhume in case that they had the answer for the ley line. Yeah, I took the Exhume. I don't care if they unmask this hand. Here I lead with the Arbor. This game's not going to be too interesting in my opinion. Like, we pretty much have it locked up already. We just have to play safe, essentially. We lose potentially to show and tell, but I think we're okay with that. There was an argument to be made to take the Gristlebrand, but my guess was they were on the canister list because I think this is a grinder. So yeah, nothing really. Reanimator matchups are the least interesting in my opinion. It's whoever mulligans better. All right, round 3. Here, our opponent typically plays like a bunch of different decks. I think they sometimes play like blue-green Omni. They play Delver, I think, sometimes. So I'll just keep a generically good hand, which this was. Obviously, we take the Cradle, given that we needed a land, and Cradle's the most powerful one. I think here, yeah, I lead with the Birch Lord because I want to protect the Shepherd. They lead with Trop, which makes me think maybe they're on blue-green Omni because that's within their range. Oops. I just play out my hand because if they are in combo, I just want to vomit my hand and then potentially threaten a fast kill. So they conceded here. At this point, I actually assume that they are not on Omni. The reason being is because I don't have lethal here. And Omni can steal games if they have a good brainstorm, for instance, or whatnot, right? Like, they're getting another turn, potentially. And the fact that they conceded tells me that they're trying to hide information. Not to mention, the Stifle here, I'm actually thinking Rug Delver at this point, based on their start. And I think also that they were holding up Stifle because they wanted to stifle my fetch. And that's why I think they were on Rug Delver. Here, game 2. We'll find out here that my guess was wrong, actually. So I board for Rug Delver. Alright, so I see this at this point, and I'm thinking, oh shoot, they're on a Bant Saga list. So I'm completely off in terms of what I was guessing. And I'm actually, at this point, I'm still off because that ended up not really being what they were on. That was actually an insane top deck. So what this does here is it allows me to ramp with Reclaimer, right? Anybody who wants to play this deck, I'd highly recommend you memorize this by heart because you have to know with Reclaimer that you can. It's a ramp spell essentially. Like think of Reclaimer with Cradle out as a rampant growth because if you fetch basic force, which you should turn 1, you're gonna Reclaimer that away for an Arbor, and that's essentially the same thing. Has the same effect as a rampant growth. Not quite Sadra. So they have a library here which can still be that, but you'll see that this is actually not what they were playing. Here we have potentially 3 mana, but 3 mana doesn't actually do anything. Well, we actually play the Reclaimer. Well, we have 3 mana, but I actually want to use Reclaimer for extra mana on the Cradle, so I actually play this pre Glimpse of Nature. Unfortunately, we whiff. I really wanted to just force the Visionary, to be honest, but we whiffed, and then I feel kind of bad now. Like maybe we should just waited a turn, right? Here I'm just trying to make best use of mana here. And I'm trying to play around a Murktide too because I'm still thinking that that's like a within realm of possibility. I think the biggest benefit of playing the old version, so I'm trying to be fair, right? I think there are a few. I think the biggest one is it's easier to play. So if you are having issues with this version, that is one I think legitimate reason to play the other version because if you are leaking, so to speak, wins as a result of suboptimal play and don't think you can get over the learning curve, that would be one reason to play the other version. Another one would be so the biggest one is easier to play, I think. Number 2, Oh, there was another you have, this is like very small in my opinion. You have a slight edge in the mirror, but I think two things, right, with regards to that. The mirror is not even that common, and two, the edge is not what you think it is. It's like 47-53, right? In terms of like, the thing Reclaimer is probably 47. You're a slight dog, but the matchup is not really dictated by Nettle Sentinel or whatnot. It's typically dictated by who goes first and has turn 3 natural order. Like, that is typically what it comes down to. Alright, so pass the turn. Here I'm holding up Reclaimer active. So here they play the Exploration, and I just realized, oh, I've completely misboarded against, well, not necessarily too because they have Stifle, right? But they're just on a different deck than I thought. So the jig is up now, I guess, but it's like too late. It doesn't matter anyways. I think yes and no, Sadra. I think there's two parts of the deck, right? I think obviously the glimpse, and especially I'll show on the side. Actually, it's not here, but I ran 3 Heritage Druids for today, and I think that actually keeps the Storm portion of the deck pretty consistent. And then obviously we feel like Doomsday sometimes because, you know, you don't really play many spells. You Reclaimer sculpt your board, so to speak, similar to Brainstorm sculpting your hand, and then we just kill them with one spell, Natural Order, out of nowhere. Or Glimpse, or sorry, not Glimpse, or Green Sun Zenith sometimes. So the Torpor Orb makes me feel better about, you know, misjudging their deck, right? Because we did board in the Creator Hoof anyways, and we kept out the Natural Orders. Alright, so I think we end step like deck thin here. Because we have the second Cradle. And then we just top deck lethal, right? Alright, nothing too interesting here. So this is the end of the game. So that was a pretty easy win. Here we played against Dark Poet Bill. I'll talk a little bit more about this. This showed my unfamiliarity with, I guess, what some of the changes in the metagame lately, and this cost me actually. So pretty strong actually. Pretty strong game. What's the word I'm looking for? Opening hand. So I kept the Glimpse, given that we had the Visionary and the Glimpse. So I kept the Cradle because we had the Visionary and the Glimpse. And then this hand looks pretty solid. Ideally, we don't draw this land here, but it is what it is, right? And especially the way our opponent is playing, so this is going to be a recurring trend here in this game, right? Like, we drew 2 lands, and then suddenly they forced our, you know. Here, I can actually natural order again for either Archon or what am I thinking about? I can either natural order for Archon or Gris, and then I opt not to because I think, oh, it could be lethal next turn, right? If I draw a land. Famous last words, and it actually screwed up. I forgot that the other Arbor was already exiled because I was just looking at the graveyard, and that's actually a costly mistake. If I had remembered, I would have actually just natural order this turn and get the Archon to play it safe. The thing is, like, Archon is not desirable because Earl can beat it. But I think here, yeah. So here I've made the decision now. I have to get the Gris on the board because of the looming Earl. So there's no way. They have a second force, and sometimes that just happens, right? Like, it's potential. They probably had it already because they did force. What is it? I think they forced our Glimpse, right? Yeah. So, or they potentially drew it off the either the Earl or their draw step, one or the other. But nonetheless, I waited a turn. It's hard to say whether I got punished or not by it. Maybe they had already had it, but hard to tell. And we're just flooding out really, really poorly here. Also, one thing I want to point out is they had the chance to slam Earl the previous turn and they didn't. Two things could have been the case. One, they wanted us to walk into Hullbreacher, or two, or have Force of Will in their hand. All right, so Earl's down. The problem is Earl's kind of like the new Jace, right? Like it's 3 mana. If they have like a couple of turns, no second G. Uh, what do you mean, Levi? I think I forget what they had, but I just assumed that they were gonna be able to Earl the following turn. Well, I also okay. To be fair, Levi, also they had the Hullbreacher, right? Like, I would have to rewind. I think, but let me see. Okay, let me rewind. So they cast the Hullbreacher, they attack with the Hullbreacher, and then they have the Ice Fang. It's Yeah, maybe they don't have the second green. Yeah, for sure. Based on the sequencing that happened here on the side. Um, yeah, otherwise you slam down the Earl. The alternative is maybe they have another force, right? Like the third force or fourth, I guess, right? They aggressively force. I guess what was it earlier? Yeah, they force the glimpse. Okay, hold on. Force engage on the glimpse. Uh, and then they force. They force the natural order, and where's the third one? Oh, they forced the reclaimer just now. Agreed, Levi. They have to force the glimpse and the natural. I'm thinking of the round one opponent that what is it called? I'm thinking of the round one opponent that just kind of randomly force things that, in my opinion, they should not have. But this person, yeah, I would also force glimpse there and force natural order there. We're already way behind. The minute they had Earl on board, I expected to lose. The big mistake was not really even in this. It's just like me seeing the Hullbreacher. I didn't put it in my mind at the time that, oh, there are days undoing deck. Like I thought that thing was. I know it won the challenge the week before, but I assumed the Hullbreacher days undoing slash like Narset days undoing combo was more of a gimmick than anything else. Like I didn't actually expect people to actually play it. Because I had not really seen it much prior, aside from Rotor Murdis in leagues, who plays that a lot. But this is obviously a different opponent, and to me at least, and especially with a lot of basics, I thought that there was a potential chance that they had back to basics too. Um, so I boarded in, and I saw Earl here, right? So I assumed that they were actually on. I didn't need to play around Days Undoing. So famous last words, unfortunately. So I boarded in Endurance over the Thoughtseize. If I know that they're on the combo, I obviously boarded the Thoughtseize to break it up. So we lose here. Round game two, we win because there's a game three, right? But I'll just go over it since this is. I think the matches were all pretty interesting. I kept this hand. I didn't. Notably, I did not take Cradle there because we already have a lot of lands, and I don't. I think there's a problem, a potential issue of not getting to natural order, so I kept a Visionary. Here, I didn't burn the fetch because I potentially want this to be Arbor down the road. Okay, we drew kind of poorly, but turns out to be okay. We gotta... Our hand is not great, but luckily the Green Sun is... Green Sun is like the glue in the deck. So I attack here. If they have a Containment Priest or a Snapcaster, I bounce. They have a Sword, so I bounce anyways. And then I'm going to end step Arbor, yeah. I think here we slam Glimpse. That's okay. Fluster Storm sometimes catches me off guard because it's not played as much. People like free permission. This is a hell of a draw, to be honest. Because it allows us to play our Once Upon a Time on end step too, like without giving away information. Alright, so here we play the Shepherd, we force through the Wirewood. If we do it the other way, I guess the order doesn't super matter, I guess. It's... If they want to force... Actually, I should probably do it the other way. Although the other way gets blown out by Containment Priest. So I think here, yeah, I force through the Wirewood. I'm like keeping track of possible Containment Priests here, especially with the fact that we're kind of ahead, right? We're trying to think how we lose this game now. And here I Green Sun for 1. Hindsight's 2020. So what I should have done was actually Green Sun for 3 to play around the Containment Priest and uptick. But I played for 1 because that's just natural heuristic, right? And then I bog. The game's not really close at this point. And then finally I like finish the game. Yeah, not really that interesting, to be honest. I think the most interesting part is when your control opponent has 3 to 4 mana up, what to play around given the hand. I think that's probably the most interesting part of this match, and I think here like I didn't run out the natural order because there was no need to. Different story though if I had put it together game 1 that they are on the Undoing combo. I probably forced the natural order through earlier if I had made that logical jump. Game 3, unfortunately, we, spoiler alert, get punished for not making this connection. So I kept in Endurances, and then we have like an okay hand. The Once Upon a Time, unfortunately, whips pretty badly. And they mold a 5 too, so I think we win easily if we had boarded correctly here. So we drew a land. I'm gonna fetch basic, I believe, to play around. Sorry, I'm gonna use... What did I do? I was gonna use this fetch for the Arbor. Unfortunately, we saw the Arbor, right? And then I took the Endurance instead. So I leave with the Arbor, given that we're flooded anyways. This ends up buying our opponent time. The reason why I'm leading with Arbor there is because otherwise the Cradles will be dead anyways. And we've had just some awkward draws here. Though I did make a small mistake here. I probably should lead with Caracas in case I drew another land, so I can actually start hard casting Endurance as a threat. So that was a misplay on my behalf. No. Well, I would have to see how I boarded, right? I don't remember. Okay, we can probably figure it out. One second. Okay. We'll figure out in the next matchup because the sideboard is already bored. Actually, here we have 3 heritages out. We get to keep 1 if we have. Actually, no, we would board them all out if we have the 4 endurances. So if we have the 4 thought seizes, so I don't think it matters. When they did that, because my line here was to set up endurance into endurance and then natural order, because we have the progenitors in hand, right? Otherwise, I would slam down the progenitors. Sorry, yeah. The line here was endurance into natural. Unfortunately, we get comboed here. Yeah, so I just do what I can, right? I play the endurances, but we're already like way behind. And spoiler alert, I guess. We made the mistake of not realizing or not assuming that they would have the combo, and maybe that's my mistake for not being prepared in the sense that I just didn't take this combo seriously because it just felt really gimmicky to me. But maybe that's what Control needs to win some of the non-Delver matches against combo or whatnot, because one issue I think Control has is it has a hard time closing out, and this is like I guess one way to do it. But I will say there is a redemption story though. Like one thing that's important in Magic, I think, is to learn from your mistakes. And even though we lost this match, okay, I'm not gonna like we're way behind, right? I'm gonna close this and save people time. It's not particularly interesting from this point. But one thing that's important, I think, is to learn, especially on the fly, being able to adapt. And I will say there is a redemption story on this later on. Spoiler. So we're 2-2 here. I think about actually just dropping, but because the pricing is actually really good, even for top 32, I think to myself, okay, if I lose one more, maybe I'll drop, because pricing at for top 32 is still like roughly $100, and because it's like 400 play points. I mean, obviously play points is like your miles may vary depending on who you are. I think still like getting 25 chests, which is like roughly at minimum. If I do the math, let's see, it's like probably like $60-ish or so. Just back of the envelope math. It's about $60-ish roughly. So I figure, okay, if I lose one more, maybe I'll drop, but because time is money too, right? But I end up playing it out because the showcase challenge is in 2 weeks, and because I don't play prelims anymore, I wanted to practice. So I decided, okay, we'll play it out, and I'm glad I did. All right, round 5, Miss Skinbolic. So this is the Pauper avatar. So their history was just entirely like Pauper version of Delver, so I kind of assumed that they were on the same. And we have a 5 land hand that's not keepable. We have a 3 land hand that's more keepable, so I keep. And I think this matchup is interesting, not from a gameplay perspective, because I think our opponent was pretty green with respect to legacy. You'll see what I mean. But I got to do some cool plays as a result, though. Here we keep the Visionary. There's no other keep, right? And Steam Vents is a dead giveaway that they're on Delver. Here I just want to ramp, right? I have a payoff, so they have the Wasteland. That's fine. Here what I really want to do is like lead with Glimpse and have them force it. They brainstorm, don't find the force. I'm gonna run the Visionary into Daze. Unfortunately, it does get dazed here, which feels bad. Here, it's pretty interesting to me what to take, and I think it's pretty obvious actually. Reclaimer is nice here, but there is a world where they can beat Reclaimer if they slam Murktide, for instance, this turn, and then have Force backup with 7 cards in hand. So I actually take the Grist because you need double Force, right, to beat this. And then I just attack with everybody. So they Murktide, I think, here, yeah. So I fetch because I know I'm gonna grist this turn. I don't want to draw the Bayou. Deck thinning again, right? Ideally, they force this. The fact that they don't, I expect this to get forced. But they actually don't represent force because they dug for it earlier, I guess, right? And they probably with a brainstorm. So I minus here and then bash. Our opponent is way behind already, by the way. Yeah, so we have lethal here. This next game is where I get to do some really cool plays. I think what's the word I'm looking? Style points is at a premium in this next play game. So as a spoiler, I win pretty easily. I think the opponent is not very experienced in the like especially against elves, which is like you kind of have to play against to be able to know where the choke points are. And I think they're just green to legacy. I keep it because it's like a reasonable hand, right? I know, right? Delver did not have a good showing, by the way, in the PTQ. I don't think it made top 8 at all, based on the usernames that I saw. And I just did not see many people like say that they did it well with Delver, for whatever it's worth. I think Delver is at a point where... I'll put it this way. If there is a banning soon, I don't think they ban because of balance reasons. Because I do not think that... Well, two things, right? One... it hasn't met the 55% threshold that's needed, and that trend has been going down, actually. It's like almost close to 50 at the moment, lately. So not only does it not meet the 55% threshold, it's trending in the wrong direction. And I think just a lot of decks have just adapted, right? Because these non-blue decks take longer to adapt because there's just less people working on them. Here I'm deck thinning again. If they do ban, I think it would be because people just don't enjoy playing against the card. Which, if it were me, I don't really care. Like, I mean, I think Legacy is kind of casual anyways. If you want to ban because it's unfun, that's personally fine with me. But again, for competitive reasons, I don't think it would be. I don't think it's anywhere close to being banned at the moment. Here, I think I just saved. I don't want to expose the. I only have 2 forests, so I know Lands players have been exploiting this. Spoiler ahead, by the way. So I don't want to expose the Bayou. And when I say Lands players, I'm referring to Ghost Quarter specifically, right? That would be one reason to play the 3rd basic, by the way, if you think there's a lot of lands in your metagame. So here, I lead with Glimpse, I believe. Yeah. So they forced the Heritage Druid. This is actually kind of a strange play from our opponent because the Glimpse has resolved and they're submerging when the Glimpse has resolved. So I'm guaranteed to draw a creature here, which is inexperienced in my opinion from our opponent. So what I do here is because I want to draw the creature, because Glimpse is potentially resolved, right? I open myself potentially up to days to here, but I think I'm okay with that. Because I want to draw the Reclaimer regardless. Alright, so I play the Reclaimer. They force it now, when they should have probably forced it earlier. Alright, so this is the sick play that I was talking about earlier. We have an active Glimpse. We have an Endurance in our hand. And I know that they don't have... well, I can live with them having Murktide because I have an Assassin's Trophy. So I'm going to run my 1-2 here for style points and see if my opponent is heads up. And it turns out that they are not used to playing around Endurance because anytime your opponent makes this applies to limited a lot, right? Where your opponent makes a suspect attack, you have to assume that they have some kind of comeback trick. And here we do, and we have an active glimpse too, so we just get like full value, right? We get to kill their DRC and draw a card and wipe their graveyard. All right, so they take the bait, and then I'm just gonna pitch the Visionary because in the event that I want to keep the Assassin Trophy, this is a premium card in this matchup. So this is just like complete blowout here. Like the game is over in my opinion, based on this play. So we just take the time essentially to just, we're gonna start fetching. We have like, I don't even care if they waste the Cradle, like be my guess at this point, because we're gonna start bashing, right? And then yeah, they can see because they're just way too far behind. And we have Assassin's Trophy up, like the game's over. But yeah, style points. My logic too was at that point was, well, I'm 2-2 at the moment. We're just gonna have some fun now, right? Now that I'm decide I'm gonna play this out at least until I lose. And luckily, we were able to string together 4 wins in a row. And then I gotta have one cool, highlight reel, so to speak, right? Like we had what's the word I'm looking for? A tweet-worthy moment. I didn't tweet it out, obviously. I don't want to, rag on my opponent too much. They obviously were coming from another format, but it is what it is. I did say spoiler about Ghost Quarter, and here Rodney, who's from what I can tell, I follow Rodney on Twitter. Seems like a cool guy. So I don't know what he's on, but the last time I paired into Rodney in like non-league, I don't think I've run into Rodney much in leagues, if anything. He was on Oops, and I'm a little bit nervous because you could probably get down a game against Oops, but we have a terrible hand opening 7, so I mull this. This is like a virtual mull, 2 mulls already, right? The arguable the Gris is also a mull. I keep this, and I'm thinking, oh, if he's on Oops, the endurance might be pretty good here. So I would keep this regardless, and I would actually keep this. I would bottom the same card here regardless, which is a land. So I see turn 1 Bant Exploration, and I'm thinking, oh shoot, there are lands, and this hand is not really suited to beat lands. So I'm kind of thinking, we're probably gonna be down a game, and especially they kind of had a really explosive start too, right? I fetch here obviously, and I play my measly Birchlore Ranger. I say measly, but Birchlore Ranger is actually pretty good as a card. It's one of my pet cards. Well, I wouldn't say pet, but it's like very strong. I think it knows. So here, what's happening is Ronnie pitched their Horizon Canopy and then got a fetch, exiled the fetch as well into a Crucible. So the line here is Ronnie is actually just trying to outvalue me out with the Horizon and the fetch land. I have no choice but to burn the Endurance here. Like, I played the Ranger, and I was afraid that I might have to do this, but if I don't play the Ranger and I play the Symbiote, for instance, it's a weaker line, and potentially that I have something up my sleeve. Or if I just go fetch land go, right? Like, that I have it's a giveaway that I have the Endurance. So I pitched the Symbiote here as a Hail Mary, so to speak, because there's no way I'm winning this game otherwise. I have to hope that Ronnie went all in on the Crucible and that this slows him down enough. And we'll see if it did. Ronnie passes the turn, tells me that the card in hand is not a land. Obviously, they would have played it, right? Here, I think I just ramp. Actually, hold on. I think here, what did I do? I think given this board state, I think we need a payoff. So I think I probably play the Visionary. Yeah, so I did play the Visionary. Because if the Visionary whiffs and you spent the Green Sun for an Arbor, you're probably just, at the whim of your deck, right? So the Glimpse was quite good. And then I'm hoping to cash. If I don't, in case I don't, I need a Glimpse next turn because there's a small window usually against lands where you have to kill them before they can like lock you down or kill you with Mirror Lage. And I need to be able to fire off Glimpse. Because of that, I don't burn the Green Sun for an Arbor here. I save it for a Wirewood. It's also good for Heritage if I draw well. Alright, so here, let me think. I draw the Natural Order. So I can actually cast the Natural Order for non-lethal, but I can't play around Mirror Lage anyways. So I'm going to try to huff for non-lethal and take them to 2. Alright, so, and hope that they don't have it, right? Like, I put the pressure to 2. If they have the Merit Lage next turn, I'm okay with that because these 2 will get in for the final 2 points of damage. It was like a convenient number, so to speak. It also plays around top deck Maze of Ith or whatever they may have. So, pretty happy here. Typically against lands, you'll probably be down game 1. So we happen to steal game 1 here. And obviously, like, brings joy to my eyes to see the Ipnu Rivulet because they're using it for value here, but obviously it's for the Doomsday matchup. I think here we've only seen Trop, which is relevant for down the road. I want to point that out. I think this is like a reason why I kept. We unfortunately don't really get to play much Magic this game, and you'll see why. They go turn 1 Sphere, which is like brutal. We land go. We play our Reclaimer, and hopefully, and we have a second credit, which is like really good. All right. We play a Reclaimer, and then we play another Cradle because we have the second, right? This is actually brutal now. So Rodney knows my list, or at least if not my list, knows what the stock Reclaimer list looks like. And because he aggressively Ghost Quarters here on my 2 basic 4s, and I'm like, shoot, I'm gonna lose this game now. There's 2 spheres out, and I can't get this is strip mine here. And then I play it. There's an argument to be made actually that I should not even play this and hope to top deck a fetch. So that was a small misplay. It ends up it's not gonna matter. In the interest of time, I'm just gonna speed this up. I will not draw another land for a while, and it's gonna be over before. Yeah, so they have Loam up. The game's pretty much over at this point. Like they can start strip mining me every turn. So yeah, it's pretty much over at this point. Game 3. So fortunately we're on the play because we stole game 1. Not great, but I think I keep because of the Natural Order. Yeah, I do. As a rule of thumb, this matchup is very difficult, and one of the only ways to win is you have to kind of have Natural Order. So I kept this, even though there's no ramp, right, off the back of Natural Order itself, because I just don't see a scenario where I win otherwise. Would I rather face 3-ball or Sphere? Obviously, 3-ball I think is the worst, right? Because Sphere, like 2 mana versus 3 mana, right? For a lot of your 1-drops. Obviously, but the one scenario that's different is like Sphere is 5 mana for natural and 3-ball is still 4. But I think under most circumstances, Sphere's probably not as bad. I've won through Sphere without removing it before. But I guess that the same is true as 3-ball. Here I play out the Reclaimer and I don't burn the fetches in case I need them later on. Also, because I have the Natural Force, it's awkward if they have Ghost Quarter, right? So Reclaimer, you know, getting Cradle. It's their turn too, and they haven't done anything. My Spidey sense should have went off here. I was trying to figure out what they had, and it just seems like an awkward situation. I I should have known something was up, but it just seemed I didn't pick up on it at the time because they had two lands that they pitched to Mox Diamond. I guess they can make a construct, like, but I think, oh, they're allowing me to untap with a Cradle and the Reclaimer. And then here, I'm starting to test. Maybe they have removal. Well, if they have removal, they would have used it. But so I play the Heritage. I play the Druid, and I think, oh, well, I have the Progenitus here. I think I have to cash it in, right? Like if they have the Mindbreak trap, which is what I was actually thinking they could have. I think if they have it, so be it, right? I have to get a clock down before like there's lock pieces coming up. And they have Flusterstorm, and I'm thinking, oh shoot, that's right. Ali, Albie Lindbergh, um, started playing a blue splash for Flusterstorm. I'm thinking, oh my god, I just got blown out here. So kind of a disaster, really. And I fetched the Bayou because we know Ghost Quarter is already in their deck, right? Like, so this is actually pretty good play by our opponent. Um, they get the Tabernacle online, and they waste us here, so we're like pretty set back on mana now. I have to bounce the Heritage here. And then it'll be bash. Luckily, we're just drawing Cradles for days, and not the end of the world, right? And luckily, we did fetch the Bayou too because our opponent did draw the Ghost Quarter. We pay for the tax, and this is actually a very good top deck. Glimpse is like iffy sometimes in this matchup, but we had the Wirewood. The Wasteland here is quite good. And then, alright, so heads up play by Rodney. I attacked, and with the logic thinking, oh, I can untap my Reclaimer and protect my Guy's Cradle in a pinch. He knew I would do that, and as a result, wastes me first, triggers my untap, and then swords my Reclaimer response, which is like heads up by Rodney. But I'm not playing around like multiple things like that, right? The good thing is I was gonna bounce regardless because of the glimpse it had. We drew another land. Because of that, I was willing to wait on another turn for glimpse. Actually, I take that back. We can bounce it, so there's no harm in playing the Heritage here. So here we get the Arbor because it makes more mana with the Wirewood untap, right? And then I tap this way in case our opponent will want to crop rotation. Well, the crop rotation they have to kill straight up, so it doesn't matter. I played the Reclaimer here for more mana on the Cradle, and then leave with the Glimpse here. From this point on, we're dead if they have the crop rotation, so we cannot play around it. So here, I'm actually happy that Ronnie copies his Ghost Quarter, and so that because that tells me that they don't have the crop rotation. All right, so they top deck the crop rotation there because otherwise they would have to kill the previous turn, right? I'm thinking, oh shoot, like it's now or never for us, right? We have the glimpse. I'm gonna bounce because we need to go off now, right? Like our out here is the Caracas in our deck, or a natural order, and then we pay, and then important thing here, right? We already have the natural order. There's no need to punt by accidentally drawing the hoof. So I'm just gonna play the heritage and fetch for Arbor, and then natural order for lethal. Really, the MVP of this matchup was just being able to draw multiple Kratos, because I think it's very difficult to beat lands without Kratos in this match. Like, Kratos is obviously a broken card, but I think you can win a lot of your matches without it. I think lands is one of those matches where it's nearly impossible to win without. And I jokingly said one top deck, one good top deck, which is their crop rotation, deserves another, right? We top deck the natural order off the top as well. So close this. Feeling pretty good at this point. Like, we just beat probably, in my opinion, our hardest matchup, which is lands, and I don't think it's impossible to win. And I think Ronnie's a strong player, so. But I do think we're a big underdog. It's probably 30-70. Like, I don't think it's like 20-80. Perhaps it is, but 30-70 sounds about right. I think only really extreme matchups are 80-20, and off the top of my head, the only thing that comes to mind that's 80-20 is 8 casts and elves. I've seen elf players just blindly cast spells and will win against 8 casts. It is that lopsided. Okay, round 7. So this user plays multiple decks, so I saw that they were on, like, I don't even know, but they could be on anything, I think. And then I see 80 cards, and I actually breathe a sigh of relief, because Elves is favored against anything with 80 cards, whether that be, Blue Zenith, which is the McWin sauce pile, or Death and Tax. I think behind 8 cast, the second best matchup for Elves is Blue Zenith, and the third best matchup for Elves is D&T. So again, right, like, it's either the second or the third best matchup for us, and I'm happy to see either. This Crater Hoof is like a mulligan, but the rest is like okay, so I'm gonna keep. And then I lead with Heritage, because if they have removal, Heritage isn't great anyways. So I see base. Okay, this is one thing that I think D&T players are leaking information. Anytime I see non-snow planes, I put them on D&T, because I believe if you want the full percentage points of concealing, you should play snow. And this confirms what I thought, right? And granted, the counter argument is maybe, oh, they're gonna know we're on Death and Taxes anyways, because it's 80 cards and it's planes instead of actually, I take that back. I think the McWin sauce list plays snow covered planes. Thank you for the follow, by the way. I think it was Vindicator. Yeah, so Jason pointed out, I think the Green Sun deck also plays a snow plains. So if they had led with the other one, I would be unsure of what they had here. But because they have this plains, I 100% put them on D&T, because I know D&T players are very proud of their plains. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like, it's awesome to have plains, but the non-snow basic is forest. They could, but I know, like, it matters, and don't get me wrong, it matters to a lot of D&T players, like, the aesthetics. And if you ask me personally, would I rather be happy when I play? The answer is yes. So the percentage points you give up is probably not a ton, I would guess. I don't know. Like, especially if you're somebody like Jason or John Ryan Hamilton, who people will put you on, D&T regardless, right? If you're on 80 decks. But if you're not somebody who plays D&T normally, it might be worth having the snow. I didn't buy the 20th basic planes to play snow art for 1%. That's pretty funny, actually, Jason. Yeah, my personal take on it is, I think if you don't care about aesthetics, for sure, the beta is pretty awesome. I appreciate that. I think if you don't care about aesthetics, my personal viewpoint is all snow is probably optimal. I don't. There was once upon a time where predict was a thing, but I don't think that is enough of a thing at the moment to be worth consideration. I think, especially in 80 cards, if it were me and I didn't care about art, I would just play all snow. But if you're somebody people would put on D&T anyways, it frankly doesn't matter, right? Because they're just gonna assume with 80 cards you're on D&T. So here I fetch. I'm just gonna play. I want to glimpse the next turn, so I just play a visionary. So they turn 2 Stoneforge. Typically, I'm okay with that. It means a slower hand, right? Like, it means they don't have... I'm more scared like Spirit of the Labyrinth or something like that. Here, I think given we didn't hit a land drop... Let me see. I think here, given that we... What would I do here? I think I probably play... Yeah, given that we didn't hit a land drop, I play the Birchbough for mana, and then I probably play the Visionary here. Yeah, so I did. And we hit the best possible, right? We hit a Guy's Cradle off the top that I'm going to get for Wirewood. So the the Visionary draw here was very clutch. So for what it's worth, I own D&T on paper, but I'm a boomer, so it's only 60 cards still. I played at a time, it's outdated, but I didn't want to update to all snow. I have half, I split, but I know that's 100% wrong at the moment. If I'm playing 60 cards D&T and I actually care to update it, I would just, actually, no, I take that back. I do think I updated and just changed it to all snow basics because, especially on paper, I have other decks. I could conceivably be on Elves or conceivably be on Ant or Delver as well. Delver is less likely just because I haven't updated the deck recently, but for whatever that's worth. But I do think if you don't care about art, and I do think art is worth something. I think there's I had a conversation. I won't disclose the identity in case they want to remain anonymous. I had a conversation with another prominent well, my boomer is more so no, boomer is essentially anybody who's not a Magic Zoomer at the moment, if in my eyes. Yeah, that's fair, Jason. It's just like if people put you on it anyways, there's really no point. You rather just enjoy your art. I had somebody recently, a prominent Elves player in the community. I won't disclose who in case they want to remain anonymous, but they came to me and asked and said they're probably going to be off Reclaimer for now because while they acknowledge that Reclaimer is probably the superior build just because of the resiliency, they enjoy the shenanigans, so to speak, of Queen Ranger and Nettle Sentinel too much to give it up. So going forward, they'll be on that more because they also mentioned that, and I know a lot of people who played the traditional build have a harder time because it's hard to resist the urge, and myself included, right? I went through this. I know other people who've gone through this. Magic Zoomer is anybody who who's young enough to use Zoom for school. So for COVID times, essentially anybody who's in school. So whether that be college or high school is the general definition of a Zoomer, Dustin. And it's not even a Magic Zoomer, right? It's just a Zoomer in general. That's the term. And the term is coined after the application Zoom, where they learn from. They're in school, but they learn from home because of COVID, right? That's how it came up. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so this person did acknowledge. Oh, they think the Reclaimer build is better, but they just enjoy and it makes them happy to play the Queen Ranger, the Netto build. So I said that's fair. Like, I don't play like, for instance, for the mocks. I was actually running pretty hot with Is It Blitz in Modern a year ago. Just a Gen Z play on Boomer. Nah, it's well, it's both, right? Like it's a play off Boomer, but it's also it became a term because of COVID, because of the Zoom app, because it's how they learned. I think it's both. Yeah, I think it's both. So what was I gonna say? Oh, I didn't play Is It Blitz. Yeah, I think yeah. So Jason, if you heard it pre-COVID, then there's definitely some merit to that. But I do think the fact that the Zoom application is a thing is also part of the reason. But I didn't play Is It Blitz even though I was running kind of hot with it in Modern because I just didn't enjoy that type of deck play style, and I ended up playing Green White Reclaimer instead as a result. So I definitely get the aspect of being happy, right? Like that I played worse. I found with Is It Blitz, even though I felt like the deck was potentially well positioned because of Blood Moon, but I didn't play it just because I didn't enjoy that style of deck. Yeah, the app will make it stick forever. Okay, so our opponent here is getting a Cauldron I think it's pronounced complete, but I could be wrong. For sure, yeah. I mean, I think Legacy and EDH both, right? Like you play for fun, not so much because you want to be obviously competitive too. But if you're gonna be unhappy, I'm not gonna get. I never really ding people for for their if they care about their art, right? For their basic planes, for instance. I had another person who picked up elves like kind of recently, who asked me, was there a reason why I played the snow covered forest? And I said, honestly, it's in case somebody bobbles you like turn one on the play, then maybe they think you're on some other deck, for instance, right? That'd be the number one reason to play snow right now. Yeah, if you want to play it. So I had a person pick up elves and ask me, was there a reason why they can't play their beta forest or whatever their forest was? I said honestly, it doesn't really matter. The only reason at the moment, and this was around the time right after Eternal Weekend, right? Because elves had done so well. I said that baubles would be a reason, and that's pretty much just it. For information reasons. All right, so we're gonna. I want to point out I did not bounce the visionary there, and that's because I knew I was gonna glimpse this turn, and I wanted the creatures on board. Potentially because I'm gonna huff too, right? All right, so yeah, we did not bounce because we want the mana for the Gaia's Cradle, and this game was never really that close afterwards. So our opponent Kara's conceded, like because we didn't even tap the Cradle. I get asked this question a lot, which is, can this deck go infinite? So that's one of the questions that I will get with regards to this deck. The answer is yes, but it's a little bit harder to set up because you need. Yeah, I think so too, Dustin. I'm not touching a Magic store anytime soon as well. Uh, like when the cases were down and after my vaccination, I went to play some EDH. I haven't really touched Legacy, Paper Legacy in like years, essentially. Like, I think I played like an FNM, but no tournament, obviously. I was gonna go to the 100K, but two reasons, right? One, COVID. Well, actually, I take that back. I don't want to get in trouble. Two reasons why I didn't play the 100K. So it got postponed. This is in Missouri, right? It got postponed to November, and it eventually got postponed anyways because of COVID. So that was the second reason. But the number one reason, obviously, got to make the wife happy, right? It was also around the time of my 5-year wedding anniversary. So happy wife, happy life, and I'm definitely not gonna be in the doghouse going to a Magic tournament when the 5-year anniversary is the same month, right? So little tidbit about that. But going back to the infinite question here, yeah, the setup, you can still do it. It's just that you need the active glimpse first with the live heritage. And then you can just draw up your deck, and then eventually either Green Sun or Natural Order. Well, Natural Order you can do regardless, even without the Cradle. But if you have the active Cradle, you go infinite, right? Because every creature you play is going to add to the mana. And eventually you're going to be able to just tap the Cradle for 8 or 9 mana, depending on what you need, right? Or sometimes the cool lines of I can see a scenario where you tap it for like an Archon first to protect your hard-casted Cradle Hoof, right? That's like 15 mana if need be. So that would be the reason for that. But yeah, you can still go infinite. It's just it's harder and easier in some ways. It's harder because you need to have the heritage chain already self-sustaining, but it's easier in the sense that with this deck you always have access to Gaia's Cradle. So in my opinion, it's a little bit harder because, like I said, you have to have the glimpse going. But I think the number one draw of this deck is we have Gaia's Cradle essentially every game. And the reason why it's essentially every game now too also is because we went up to 4 once upon a time. Like I made a joke before that before this was oops 99% Cradles. Now it's really oops all Cradles because I think in hindsight we're gonna look back and now I kind of already feel this way. Playing 3 once upon a time in this list is like playing 2 Ponders in the Old Miracle list, right? Like it's one of the strongest cards in the deck, and it makes the virtual deck size smaller. So why wouldn't you want to play 4 copies? The logic for not playing 4 before is because the second copy is a little awkward, but recently, thanks to our good friend Metalfish, Chris, he did the math on this, and it actually ends up that, and I kind of did the math before, but in most of the time you can live with it if Once Upon a Time is your second Once Upon a Time is your only awkward card in the deck. I'm sorry, not deck. The second Once Upon a Time is the only awkward card in your hand. And the only awkward cards otherwise would be extra Natural Orders, extra Glimpses, or either Cradle Hoof or Archon. I actually kind of want to ask Chris if he can rerun the calculations with that updated as with the 4th Once Upon a Time as kind of a bad card to draw and see what the math comes out to be. I suspect though it's more often correct to have the 4th ones. I suspect it's gonna do more good more often than bad, so to speak, based on the math and just my preliminary back of the envelope calculations as well, right? Using for those of you who don't know, I'm gonna post it here actually. This is the website I use to quickly do back of the envelope math for percentages. You can just Google hypergeometric as well calculator, but this is what I will use. I mean, there's like plenty of these kind of tools. I think with that said, this like sums up this D&T matchup. So round 8. This is the last. Yeah, I think that was round 7. This is the last match of the event, but I do have to use. Yeah, so you can just Google that every time. Like, it's the first link that comes up. I'm gonna use a restroom real quick, but I want to. Yeah, I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. I'll be back in 30 seconds, or a minute. I'm gonna give myself more time. Hi Vindicator. Yeah, I'll go ahead and share it right now. Actually, I was gonna do it after this match, but I haven't shared it earlier, so I think I'll do it at the moment. Hold on 1 second. Actually, is there a way to do that? Nope. All right, here is my list. I'll move it over. Oops. This is what I played for the PTQ event. So there's a couple of things I want to point out. Some of the people who have watched me on my recent streams this week already are aware of this, but I've actually gone down to 3 Allosaurus Shepherds. I know that's gonna sound blasphemous, but here's the logic. It's not really a card I want to see in the opening hand, because it doesn't make mana, first of all. And against the non-blue and non-chalice matchups, this card is a liability. Drawing 1 is already not ideal, but you can live with it because if you have a Heritage or a Birchlore Ranger, thank you for the follow, Malix11. If you have a Birchlore Ranger or a Heritage Druid, you can still tap it for mana. Drawing the second copy though, like especially early on against like green-white depths or lands or D&T is really backbreaking in my opinion. Like I don't want to see this card against those decks, and drawing 2 is just potentially game ending. It's a disaster. And between 4 Green Sun Zeniths and 4 Once Upon a Time, I can find it if need be. And low key, you don't actually need, in my opinion, Allosaurus Shepherd to beat the control decks. Like, you eventually grind them out with Wirewood and Visionary. Like, this is not really the reason. It makes it easy, especially for newer pilots, to beat control decks. But I think any experienced elf player can beat control decks with 0 copies of Allosaurus Shepherd. You do need this card. Sure, Cunning Nettle Center was also blasphemous. So you do need this card, in my opinion. The reason why it's not like a one-up because of Chalice or to tutor for is against the fast blue combo decks like Doomsday and Sneak and Show, you do want to see this card naturally. And same thing applies for Chalice of the Void. So that's the reason why the number of copies is, for me now, 3 instead of 1. And it's not 4 because I do not want to see this card in certain matchups. Like it's I've jokingly said this is the green Ragavan, right? Because it's good against Chalice and it's good against non-blue. I'm sorry, it's good against Chalice and it's good against blue. But it's not even great like opening turns against blue decks. And we can find it reliably if need be. But it's a kind of a disaster if you draw multiples against the wrong deck, right? Like the difference is, even though this is the green Ragavan, the difference is we don't have Brainstorm to put it back, whereas the Ragavan's decks do have Brainstorm, right? Like we have to live with it if we draw it, and sometimes we can live with 1. I do not want to have hands with 2 against the wrong deck, or like turn 1, right? And the rest of my hand is like Wirewood and Visionary, it just makes no mana. So that's the logic for that. The sideboard here, I knew Reanimator was going to be popular, or I suspected so. So I played it safe and played 3 Leyline of the Void. Like, I do not want to... I think the matchup is already favorable for whatever it's worth, because you'll lose game 1, but you should win games 2 and 3 because you have a ton of hate. And I played it safe. I posted to my Discord that I was going to play the 3rd Leyline of the Void because I do not want to lose to Reanimator by accident when I knew or suspected it would be popular. And this was already hinted at in my previous stream. So going back to the last match, earlier I mentioned a redemption story. I was 2-2 and thought about dropping. I didn't because the pricing was quite good, right? Like top 32 would be $100 roughly. And I decided, I'm gonna play it out unless I lose 1 more. So we're at I guess 5-2 at this point. I'm thinking, the comeback is almost complete, and especially in round 4, we made the mistake of not assuming our opponent had the Hullbreacher combo, and I think this is what I'm hinting at with the redemption story, so to speak, right? We learn from our mistakes. Twinless Twin is usually, I think, on like Delver, so I kept a generically good hand, which this is. They're on the play, and so turn 1 Ponder off Volcanic is either a really slow Delver hand, and they don't recognize that they should be fast. I mean, I'm assuming they knew we're on elves, right? Like my Goldfish is all elves, and yeah, that's like self-explanatory. So they could be on something else. With this top deck, I think we want to. Let me think what we did here. I think we want to deck thin, and I probably fetch Misty here for force into Once Upon a Time. Okay, I take that back. I Once Upon a Time here, and I think the only logic is if they are on Delver, I want this to be a black source too, so I can cast Grist. That would be the reasoning, I think, why I went for the Once Upon a Time here without fetching first, because of the black source. So that's actually correct. Here, I think we obviously take Cradle. Like, if we need lands, there's like really no reason not to take Cradle. And then we lead with Waterwood, because again, Waterwood is bad if they have removal, right? Here, they led with the Prismatic Ending, so I'm thinking they're on some kind of control deck now. In Jeskai colors, that is like has a strong mana base. So they forced the Waterwood. I'm pretty happy about that because now I can just play what's it called? I can just play the other Waterwood. And then I obviously fetch the Bayou here. I don't think they have Wasteland because they have the basic here. They could have back to basics, but I want to be able to cast Grist is the issue. So they swords the Wirewood, which is not unexpected. We drew a 1-drop, which is pretty nice because that allows us to go 1-drop into Visionary. And if they aggressively force for whatever reason, we rather than force the Heritage instead of sequencing it the other way, right? They, again, did not do anything here. Their hand seems quite slow at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and start our draw engine. So what I did here was they're incentivized to force the Wirewood. They're incentivized to force the Green Sun for 1 because it means potentially everything else is live. Also, Green Sun for 1 could be Wirewood, which we got here anyways. And I figured that should draw out a force, right? Because the Vision is going to draw too many cards. They didn't force it, and then I am thinking at this point, okay, what am I going to lose to? I lose to potential Terminus or some kind of sweeper off the top, so I want to play in an orthogonal way. What I mean by that is, and this is probably the toughest part about this current iteration, or one of the tougher parts about playing with Grist, is when to recognize to Grist. Here we have our draw engine going, and then here we're going to go Green Sun, or not Green Sun, play Grist for 3. Alternatively, if I had a Green Sun, I would Green Sun for 3 as well, because that forces your opponent to interact on 2 different axes. If I get another another Wirewood, it can be easily answered by a sweeper, right? This means that we're a little bit immune to sweepers now, and then we just start drawing, right? There I didn't attack with the Druid because of Snapcaster Mage. I think in hindsight, I probably take that trade, and because the damage actually adds up. If they are on a green here, then I probably don't because I don't want to trade with a Ice Fang, right? Here, flooding out a little bit again, unfortunately. Yeah, so we've just drawn a ton of lands here, unfortunately. Here, I don't think I'm actually afraid of losing any of these. Like, especially with 2 cards in hand, I think I'm okay with them having a flash creature here. Like, it could be Snapcaster, but I think they're already pretty low, and this Gris is gonna threaten lethal pretty soon. So I bash in with all, and then I play the Reclaimer, and then I uptick again. So here they have Hullbreacher, and they combo us here. The good thing is they're already at 7, and we have a bunch of tokens on board. So I'm thinking, okay, there is a chance that we can potentially get them to 0. Unfortunately, we drew a land, right, which is pretty bad. I don't want to give away what we drew, so I'm gonna attack first. I bash in with all because I think we're not gonna lose in any longer game, so we have to threaten. They swords there, and then this is a misplay by our opponent. They should have, in my opinion, before declaring attacks, swords snap snores. Swords snap swords, because they take an extra point of damage, which is highly, highly relevant here. Oops. And then I plus again because there's no point in down ticking, right? The other thing that happened here was I plussed, and this actually gets me to Green Sun. What's it called? This actually gets me to Green Sun math for Creative Hub. So they're like super, super punished here because I get a hoof now, right? They're gonna have the force. Do they pitch? They pitch another Teferi, but like they go to 1. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to cast that anyways, and then I just swing in with all. Again, they would be at 0, and if that's a flash creature in here, they probably stabilize if they had not made that mistake. But it's hard to say without knowing their full hand, right? If their hand is blanks, they lose anyways because they would be at 0 exactly. All right, so we know about their combo, and then this time I correctly, well, granted I had full information, right? We got comboed, but we had to win through it. I boarded correctly, and namely bringing in the Thought Seizes. Oops. 1 second. I closed that by accident. All right, game 2. So here's what I boarded out for those who are curious. I ended up keeping 1 Heritage Druid, which was a question that was asked by Sager earlier, if Heritage would help. I kept 1 because I think if they're on the combo, I'm not going to respect the Uro. I'm going to keep the Bog for the Snapcaster, and in case they have Uro anyway, so I have an out. But I boarded normally against these Bant decks, this is Jess Guide, but against these Bant decks, I would keep an Endurance, but there's no reason to keep an Endurance here. So we're playing against the combo, and we keep 1 Heritage. It's also nice because we can tutor for it if in a pinch. And we have the 1, yeah. So we don't need the Endurance because we're not going to be tutoring for it against the Snapcaster Mage, right? Like, we would have to have it naturally in our hand. Not the best, but decent enough. Like, I generally will keep most hands. Alright, so I once upon a time found Cradle, and then I'm gonna seize. The reason why I didn't fetch there is because I want to hit the land drop. Seize, Brainstorm, Force of Will, Prismatic Ending, Swords. We have a Glimpse of Nature in our hand, but no mana at the moment, and they have the answers to our mana. I'm actually going to take the Brainstorm because I actually don't care if they Force of Will us. Like, this is what I mean by we don't actually need Allosaur Shepherd against these control decks. So yeah, I'm just trying to limit what they can draw because I'm not scared of anything in this hand. Like, if you're an elf player, you should not be scared of spot removal, and you should not be scared of Force of Will. So here I'm just going to play everything out. I led this way on purpose because I'm thinking in their hand they have 2 removal spells. My goal is to glimpse, and if I do get to glimpse, I want the Birch Spell Ranger active. So I expect them to remove both, which is fine. Unfortunately, I redrew a Once Upon a Time, which delays our glimpse 1 turn. It's not the worst though because this will give us a guaranteed creature, right, for the most part. Okay, they flustered it. So I rather them fluster the Once Upon a Time than the Glimpse of Nature. Here, a little bit of a interesting scenario. Like, we can't make mana, so we have to play one of our creatures because our Kratos are not active, so to speak, right now. And then obviously the Reclaimer is the better creature to play. I think they find another removal spell. I think at this point this is gone, this is gone. Yeah. I'm gonna float in case, like, bluff reasons. So we know the last card in their hand is Force of Will now. This is a Mexican standoff now, right? We know Force of Will, so we're not gonna run out the Glimpse in case they let it resolve. We can freely attack here because full information, right? I would not attack if they had cards in hand, if I didn't know their hand, like in case they have a Snapcaster. All right, so here we know Forces in hand. We finally drew the creature in case they allow it through, so I'm gonna go ahead and just fire off the Force. I mean the Glimpse here. They have no choice, right? The opponent has 3 cards. You can't realistically allow this to resolve. And I'm okay with this because I know Progenitus is now going to be looming, right? Or actually, in this case, they were at 17. So it just turns out that this takes them to 1. And I valued this actually over the Progenitus because of how low they were. If this takes them to like 5, I probably don't do it this way and probably just take the Progenitus. And then they conceded, yeah. So that was all 8 rounds. We redeemed ourselves from round 4, right? We made that mistake of not realizing how to board against the Hullbreacher. Granted, we didn't know that they were in the combo. Even if we didn't see it game 1, I had asked actually in between rounds one of my colleagues, Adam Wallace, his opinion on the on how to board, and he actually said he would also assume that they have the combo if they have a Hullbreacher too. So if I had not seen it, I would have changed, and I think it's important to be able to adapt on the fly, right? Like I asked afterwards because I just assumed that it was more gimmicky than anything else, but I corrected my mistake from round 4 by us. Well, we already knew, but even they didn't, I would have boarded in Thoughtseize anyways, given the conversation I had with Adam after the match. I think that concludes it. So I was pretty happy with this. It always feels nice to finish strong. We started 0-1, and then we were, I think, 2-1, and then 2-2, and then we won the last 4 to complete, I guess, the comeback, so to speak. Not fully because we didn't make top 8. We were X2, so 6-2, and with terrible breakers. So I expected to be, in the high 20s. That's exactly what ended up happening. We were 27th. We had the second worst tiebreakers amongst X2. So we did, have a lower ranking as a result. But there's no difference in prize money between 17th and 27th. So I don't really, care anyways. But I was happy to finish strong, and not only finish strong, but learn from my mistakes too, right, from round 4. I think overall, I think I played pretty well, all things considered. I definitely had that missed board, round 4, but I think I played pretty well, all things considered. Especially later in the event. Like, I jokingly said, like, if you want to get me early, if you want to be able to catch me off guard, early is probably better because I tend to pick up momentum in terms of playing sharper as I proceed, and especially since I'm not a morning person. As I said earlier in the stream, this was a 5 a.m. start here for me, and I definitely was playing like not badly, I would say, but not fully optimal the first few rounds. That said, I'll go ahead and bring up. I'll close this. I'll go ahead and bring up my list again and see if anybody has questions. I'm not sure, Vindicator 1985. I don't know. I essentially logged off because like I was like I ran on the treadmill, did like other things with the rest of my day. Watched the the Eternal since that's on Disney Plus now, and that's like the one Marvel MCU movie I haven't watched lately. I did watch the new Spider-Man movie and the Shang-Chi, right? So I wanted to for completeness finish the Eternals. But I think going forward, I think the obvious question is, would I play this list again? I think if if the metagame doesn't change, I would probably just run the same 75 back. It felt really good for whatever it's worth. Like I said, I only got 2 losses, and one of the losses was on me. Like, I just straight up misboarded. The other loss, round 1, sometimes it happens, and maybe there's an argument to be made that we want nurturing peatland, but the reason why I don't right now is because I feel like the card is a liability against Delver. Like, I don't want to take extra damage when most of the time you should be favored against control anyways, and it's just really bad against Delver in my opinion. In which situations do you prefer Archon over second Craterhoof? The reason why I run a 1-1 split is, and this goes back to like having played D&T as well. So Stoneforge Mystic, like before, right? The default configuration is 4 Stoneforge, especially in blue decks, right? 4 Stoneforge, 1 Batter Skull, and 1 Umazawa's Jite. I think things are a little bit different now, but I'll talk about historically speaking. That's the configuration for Stoneforge Mystic package. And that's because you want the flexibility, right? If you have lethal, obviously you get a Craterhoof. I think that's self-explanatory. If you do not have lethal, I think there's 2 scenarios that come up. I think 1, if it is a fair matchup, you probably want Progenitus. If it is a combo or artifact matchup that gets hosed by Archon naming a particular card type, then I would want Archon. The reason why I have Archon over Progenitus main is because Archon is significantly better when it's bad. What I mean by that is, in the unfair matchups, Progenitus does nothing. In the fair matchups, Archon still does some things, and Green Stun for 6 is a viable thing that comes up every once in a while. Also, when your bad matchups tend to be combo pre-board, I want a way to be able to steal combo game 1. Let's steal the combo mirror game 1, and there's 2 ways of doing it, right? 7 permutations or 7 copies total. You can either, well, 8 if you count hard casting this, but you have 4 Green Suns Zenith to tutor for Collector Oof, and you have, and this is for like the 8 cast or the Wheels deck. When I say Wheels, I'm talking about the mono blue version with Chalice of the Void, or actually with the G-77 version without Chalice of the Void. It's good against Task, which is, excuse me, an otherwise very difficult matchup. And you have the 3 natural order, 2 natural order for Archon. Green Sun for Archon does come up, but typically, if that does come up, your opponent's deck has failed to function. So what I mean by that is, if your combo, if your combo mirror opponent is losing to that, it means that they've like either failed to find their win con or something like along those lines. It's not really something I expect to happen much. It happens more against like maybe Chalice decks, for instance. Like Green Sun for 6 is like reasonable. It's pretty good too. One question that gets asked a lot is, and shout out for Ethan Cummins that did well, also went 6-2 in the PTQ yesterday, is he asked why not play the oof in the sideboard? And the answer is pretty straightforward actually. It's to save a sideboard slot because it's a card I would play otherwise, and the floor on this card tends to be pretty high because unlike utility lands like Caracas, Collector Oof is a floor of a 2-mana 2/2 bear, which doesn't sound great, but you have to keep in mind the floor on Collector Oof in this deck is a lot higher because even though it's a grizzly bear, you do have 4 Glimpse of Nature that it draws off of. You have Gaia's Cradle, which it adds mana to, and you have Natural Order, which counts it as another creature for lethal. So it just randomly has a high floor, in my opinion. And it's the same reason why I've squeezed the main deck Endurance because, and anybody who doesn't play a blue deck can understand this more, I feel, and can relate to this more. Without the ability of Brainstorm and without the flexible disruption in Force of Will, you really are at a pinch for sideboard slots when you're playing a non-blue deck. So any card you can have main deck goes a long ways because as a non-blue deck, I feel like my sideboard is really starting off with only like 8 cards because in order to make up for, at least me, because I think the strength of elves, the metagame where we thrive the most is with at least 1 to 2 combo decks that are good in the metagame, because I think we have a very strong combo matchup despite being non-blue. The downside is it comes with a price. I think our sideboard realistically starts with like 8 cards because we have 4 Thoughtseize and like 3 Leyline of the Void. That is really essentially our Force of Will, right? And we only really have 8 sideboard slots, which is why it's imperative our sideboard slots are flexible, and that's why I think the Endurance printing has been really good for us, because it's good against a lot of things, and it's why we run Assassin's Trophy right now instead of, say, Swords to Plowshares or Abrupt Decay or Fatal Push, right? The flexibility is huge because in the matchups where we need it, it can be a Stone Rain as well, and that's it's a speed Stone Rain, which is pretty important. This being found off Once Upon a Time and Reclaimer is pretty big, and then I think Progenitus is non-negotiable at the moment because of Plague Engineer and just in general as a replacement for Archon. If your metagame is pretty fair, it's not unreasonable in my opinion to play the Progenitus main. And just save a sideboard slot, right? Like if you don't think you're gonna run too much combo, I think it's pretty valid in my opinion to just not play the Archon and then you save yourself a sideboard slot. But the Southern California scene and the Magic Online scene is very unfair in my experience, so I definitely want the Archon. That reminds me, another question that gets asked a lot is why not play the Savannah? 2 reasons. One, I don't think you actually need it because in the games where you hardcast it, you probably have Birch Lord anyways because it's a long drawn out game, or access to it with a green set because you need 6 mana and it's only a 1-of, right? That's number 1. I don't think you need it. Number 2, it's horrendous. The reason being is not only is it susceptible to non-basic hate, which is like Wasteland, Blood Moon, Back to Basics, it doesn't grow your Reclaimer, which is game losing against Delver. You need Reclaimer to be a 3/4. And the second thing is, against the combo mirror, you absolutely need as many virtual arbors as possible because of natural order math. It is absolutely hideous, in my opinion, to play the Savannah. And thirdly, and something that comes up every once in a while, there are some decks that will play Massacre, and you are asking to get blown the you know what out. I know Doomsday, like, it's not uncommon for them to play one Massacre because they could put it in their pile or something along those lines, and you are just asking to get blown out because of Massacre. So those are the three reasons, and all of them relevant, I think, in my opinion, at the moment. But yeah, also the endurance. One thing I want to touch upon in terms of deck building is, besides Once Upon a Time being just a broken card, I think that a printing of endurance also makes it so that we're incentivized to run the full 4 copies of each now, right? Because this thing is just so good against the matchups that we traditionally have struggled with, that I think have personally been flipped. Uh, I think this is gonna sound crazy to say. I think the year is 2022. I think Doomsday is now a better matchup than Blue Red Delver, and I think that is unreal to say if you asked me exactly 1 year ago. Uh, so you're incentivized to run 4 of this and 4 of the Once Upon a Time because it's just too important in the matches where you need it. Yeah, I think I mentioned on previous streams my record lately against Doomsday. I'm probably like X4, and this is like almost upwards of 20 matches. So I don't think the win rate obviously is 80%. I don't think it's up because you probably lose game one, and I also think Doomsday players have been underestimating me. Yeah, they definitely could. They have definitely not adjusted. So what I mean by that is, I think they either play against inexperienced elf players or they just have the preconceived notions of like, oh, the elf matchup is unlosable, right? Because it was exactly 1 year ago. What has really flipped it is two different things: the printing of endurance that I mentioned, and the rediscovery of Assassin's Trophy. Because the the hands that we are most afraid of out of Doomsday are turn 1 or 2 Dark Ritual or Petal Doomsday, and Assassin's Trophy on their land means they lose the game. So like, we have so many more keepable hands now because we have what, 6, 10, 11, 12 cards that are like reasonable against Doomsday, which means you don't need a mulligan, and your your Doomsday opponent is more punished for aggressively mulliganing now, right? So it's helped not only from a gameplay perspective, but a strategic standpoint too, right? You can just keep a lot of hands now. Yeah, so there's that too, right? Doomsday also has an unwinnable matchup against Delver. Um, but I think, yeah, the choices are pretty straightforward. If the meta game doesn't change, I probably run the same 75 back. If it does change, and I suspect it might, because Reanimator, I suspect, had a very poor showing in yesterday's PTQ. I think people will be off potentially Reanimator tomorrow. I don't know if for this to be a fact. I'm just guessing because the people I know who played Elves ran over Reanimator. So there might be just too much hate at the moment for Reanimator, and they might have to lie low until the hate goes away. So if that does happen and you predict correctly, for instance, this frees up 3 spots that you can cut with the Leyline of the Void, right? And that could be a number of things. I'd like to add, for instance, maybe 1 crop rotation. I think Run Afoul is like not unreasonable because it overlaps with Green White Depths and Delver. Although Delver's kind of down right now, so who knows, right? I think a second Gris is like reasonable too with all the control decks coming back. So that's like some of the play you have, right? But unfortunately, like I said, an elf sideboard really starts at like 7 cards, right? You're kind of locked into certain cards, and you don't have much room because you don't have Force of Will, unfortunately. The Brainstorm we don't need because who needs Brainstorm when we have Ancestral Recall? But not having Force of Will is a big deal. Um, so that said, anybody have any questions for me? I actually don't think so, Sadra. I think the uptick in Breacher has more to do with a couple of things. I think it won the event last week. What's it called? Shoot, I forgot the user's name.
but it won the event. Jeskai Breacher won the event last week, so it's new. Two, it has a cool combo, and people love, 2-card combos. Like, not to mention, it plays a blue deck, so there's that for people who are, I guess blue aficionados that are looking for a new deck to try. And lastly, I know one of the issues with Control is it has a hard time closing out, and this is kind of a cool closeout engine for Control decks, right? I think because the thing is, Uro, while strong, can be hated out. What I mean by that is, Uro decks are naturally weak to Reclaimer decks because Reclaimers are not going to be boarded out against you, and Reclaimer decks often have endurance too. So that's just a big problem, I think, for Uro decks at the moment. The Sylvan Syndicate is alive and well, and I suspect that's an issue for Uro decks, just based on theory crafting, right? So I do not think they were actually targeting Reanimator. I think more so it's just like a novelty, right? It's new. I mean, okay. So I see what you're saying, Sadra. I think the reason, okay, Hullbreacher Echo is definitely unfun to play against. Most notably, the Hullbreacher card itself is unfun to play against. But I think blue mages have had it so good that they're not used to a card that they can't really interact with. I think they would be more okay with Shepherd if Shepherd could be countered itself. But if Shepherd could be countered itself, or if they lost, for instance, its pump ability, I mean, I probably only run like a 1-up, right, at most. Especially if it lost its pump ability, right? Like, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm playing 3 instead of 1. Because it's just like good if you draw it randomly in the combo mirror. That said, though, yeah, I know I mentioned this a few times. I think Shepherd is just vastly overrated, but people just don't like playing against the card. How did I navigate against Hullbreacher? Pretty simple, I think. They were like a little bit light on mana, so I just like drew them. I drew a bunch of cards. The other thing I did was I had a protected glimpse, I think. I don't remember. It was just we just went over the matchup right now, but they had a slower hand and they like couldn't keep up with our visionary draw engine. We also had a nice glimpse for whatever that's worth. So I think they had to force the glimpse on the combo turn. We knew about the force though, but they hardcasted glimpse. Sorry, they hardcasted force on our glimpse, and then we natural order for 16, and they were at 17, and then they conceded the following turn. Thank you for the follow, Eric. What was I gonna say? All right, so are there any recommendations for where you want me to stream? There's either Mana Symbol playing Modern. Okay, so Justin, I am actually level 1 is testing for Vintage for Showcase, so that might be interesting. There's also Eyelash TV playing Modern. Any preference? Otherwise, I will go ahead and stream. I try to go ahead and raid people who have the least following. So, okay, so the least following looks like Mana Symbol right now. If there are no complaints, I'll go ahead and raid them. Thank you for everybody for tuning into this review. It was pretty fun to do. And I could play a league or something, but dinner's coming up soon, and I don't want to like stop in the middle of the league. Also, I kind of like that this is standalone. I was skeptical or not sure of how popular these reviews would be. So if you think or if you've enjoyed this review, please actually type in the chat or let me know personally, because this will incentivize me to do this more in the future. Because I don't want to. So one thing I noticed is like I did I streamed one day I think 2 weeks over the holidays. I streamed Vintage Cube, right? And it was my lowest viewer outing. Granted, it was also when other people were doing it, and I did it during a different time because I had the day off.